Hey, this is Steve, he, they, key, and I'm just here to give you a few quick tips about how we layer up to have fun outside in the cold. We're going to be discussing this a lot more when we're in person together, but I just wanted to give you a few tips so you have this recorded. I'm going to go through some of my layering system when we're thinking about going out there and getting outside. Um, so I love being outdoors all year round. It's all a matter about keeping some basic principles in place. So we want to think about how we lose our body heat. So we're thinking about blocking ourselves from the wind, blocking ourselves from any precipitation. That could be rain, that could be snow. And then we're going to be keeping thinking about how we're going to lock in that heat that our body is generating. So I'm actually getting pretty warm talking about this because I'm in a well-insulated apartment right now, and I live on the third floor, so the heat's rising up to me. But I do have one of the base layers that I like to wear. This is one of my favorite base layers. This here is a merino wool base layer. So base layers are really essential when we're thinking about getting outside, because if we're moving, if we're active, our body's going to be generating some sweat. So that's the way the human body works, is it's designed to sweat to keep us cool. Now we want to prevent that sweat from being locked onto our body, because if we stop, then all of a sudden we're going to have all that water on our skin, and then wind's going to sweep through, and that's going to cool us off. So that's a process called convection. So we sweat to create evaporative cooling, is if you want to get scientific about it. But anyway, so it's really important to have a nice base layer. So this here, I prefer merino wool over synthetics, just because I think it does a little bit better job at regulating your body temperature. I'm also committed to sustainability, so I like having natural fibers. This is ethically sourced wool from New Zealand sheep, but don't want to get too off on a tangent with that. Synthetic base layers also work great. The things you want to avoid are cotton, because cotton's going to stay wet. It's going to get wet, it's going to stay wet, and it's going to give you no insulating value whatsoever. So both wool and synthetics are still going to keep you warm if they're wet. So say you get dumped in the water or something like that, you're still going to be your body temperature is still going to be maintained, but obviously at a much lessened degree. So you're definitely going to get in dry clothing and get into some type of shelter with that. I'm also wearing a hat right now, so that's part of why I'm probably so warm, because this is a nice wool hat that I actually knit myself, which is a fun fact. So I'm going to show you here a few mid jacket options. So again, we're thinking about materials. There's a whole range of jackets we can select. So the first one I'm going to show you, this is what's called an active insulating layer. So this is this uses a synthetic fill material. This is designed for more active movement. So it's kind of like a hybrid between a fleece. So that's designed to catch some air through. So when I'm hiking in the winter, or when I'm skiing, I'm probably just going to have my base layer and something like this on, because I don't want to get too hot, too toasty moving, because then I'm going to get sweat a lot more. I'm going to waste a lot more energy, and then I'm probably going to be wet. So as soon as I stop, I'm going to be pretty cold. This next jacket option, this is a little bit thicker. I know you're probably like, it doesn't look that much thicker. It's easier to see live, but this is a synthetic fill jacket. So the reason I like to use a synthetic fill jacket is if I'm in wetter conditions, this is still going to retain some of those heat properties. If I'm say getting dumped on with some really wet snow or something like that. So this is another mid-layer option. This is going to be a little bit warmer than the first one I showed you. The next option, this is going to be a down jacket. So this is a hydrophobic down, which means it's actually treated with a water repellent coating on the inside. So that's going to help it prevent from getting what's called wetted out. But a down takes a lot longer to dry. And if it does get wet, it's going to give you no insulating properties whatsoever. So that's the caution when we're thinking about if we want to do down or synthetic. I personally think down feels warmer, just feels better on me. with that. So that's kind of what we're thinking about with our layering system. So we have our base layer, then we're going to move to some type of mid layer. So the base layer, again, is just pulling moisture away from our skin. The mid layer, what that's doing is that's locking in the body heat that our body naturally radiates. So our body does radiate heat. So I'm actually I'm moving a little bit. So I'm actually generating a lot of heat. And most of that's escaping because I just have this breathable base layer on at the moment. If I throw something like this on, that's really going to lock my heat in. I do have this mega puffy jacket here. So this is what's called a belay parka. So something when it's called a belay parka for ice climbing, you get to a belay station when you're done climbing and you're pulling up the rope with your partner. So you're not as active. So it's something that's really thick that's going to lock a lot of heat on. I don't want to be moving in this because, again, this is going to get me really sweaty and moving. This is another jacket option. This one's a little bit thicker, but this is what I would consider still a mid-weight range. This one does have a waterproof treatment on the shoulders and the hood. So again, that's going to keep it a little bit warmer. This jacket, I don't really use while I'm moving. This is more of like a camping jacket that I have out with me. This is also my general winter jacket because again, I'm not as active if I'm just walking from my car to the office or whatnot. And then the final piece to keep ourselves warm is we're going to want to have a waterproof, windproof rain jacket. So this one here, this is Gore-Tex, which is kind of the name brand when we're thinking about that. But what you want to look for is something that is waterproof, breathable for active pursuits. This is something, if it's raining and I'm moving, I might just want to throw this on for a little bit. This one's more of a winter jacket. This one doesn't have pit vents. That's a nice feature I like to have on the jacket I actually bring in the summer because it's a little bit lighter. It gives me a little bit more ventilation, again, so I don't get too hot on it. Now, I kind of touched on the point of layering. So what that means is that helps me maintain a more consistent temperature as I'm moving. So my layering system is just going to look something like this. And if I'm in really cold conditions or if I'm not moving as much, so say, for example, I teach a lot of courses in the winter outside where I might just be standing around, I'm going to put more of these layers on and I want something really simple. So I also like to have hoods. So some people laugh because they're kind of ridiculous because I actually have a hood on my base layer. I'm throwing up another hood. I get about every jacket I have, I think actually has a hood on right now. So that's a feature if you like it. I definitely, your rain jacket, you want to have a hood on. And if you're going to be using one mid layer, I suggest having a hood with that because that's going to help lock in a lot of that heat. So it is a pretty common myth that we lose a lot of heat from our head. It's not really a myth, it is true. But a bigger thing is that it's going to be comfort for that. So I'm in a really cold condition, so I'm going to throw another jacket on. I am going to say go up a hill. So I'm going to take this off before I start moving. So we want to kind of preemptively think about what the needs of our body are going to be. Also, if I'm getting to a campsite after a day backpacking, the sun's starting to set, one of the first things I do is I at least throw on a rain jacket. That's going to be the first thing I do because my body's wet from the sweat. I'm not using as much, I'm not radiating as much heat as I'm getting out there. So I definitely want to throw that on as well. So again, this is my layering system. And this is what I call the rule of three. So as long as we have those three core principles down, so our base layer that pulls moisture away, our mid layer that traps that radiative heat, and then our waterproof, windproof layer that's going to help prevent that convective heat loss, that wind and that rain, also help keep us dry. Now, if I'm out in a really cold condition, I'm actually going to throw this bad boy on over top of everything because the disadvantage of something that's this mega puffy like this too is that I can't actually get a rain jacket over this. They do make jackets that have that waterproofing that are incorporated with this. If you see like people going up to Mount Everest, that's kind of what they have. And then this jacket is fits a little bit larger than I might need, so that way I can put it over top all my layers, because sometimes I'll have like 4 mid layers on. I'm gonna take this off because I'm getting really hot now, and whatnot. That's also why I sized up my rain jacket as well. It does have adjustable cuffs. There's draw cords on the bottom, so I can prevent wind from flying up into my jacket. So that's an important consideration, because I can add 3 or 4 jackets under that rain jacket and I'll be pretty solid. The other jacket I mentioned that I have is a little bit slimmer cut, a little bit more athletic cut, and I can really only do one mid layer underneath, and even a vest and things like that. So that's just kind of the basics of what we want to do when we're thinking about staying warm in an outdoor setting. So just remember our rule of 3. So have that base layer that's going to pull that sweat away from you and help regulate your normal body temperature. Have at least one insulating layer, that mid layer, that's going to trap in that heat that your body's radiating. And then you're going to have that outer shell that is going to be waterproof and windproof to help prevent that convective heat loss. And also help keep you dry. So we use the rule of thirds on all of our body parts. So I'll use that with my gloves. I like to use glove liners. That also helps prevent skin exposure to cold air. And then I have my gloves. So say I'm setting up a tent or cooking, I can just have my glove liner on, so my bare skin isn't exposed to the elements. I still have some protection, but I can manipulate that a little bit more. Or if I'm hiking, I get pretty hot when I'm moving. So I usually don't have my big beefy glove on. They do make over mitts, which you put over top of everything. And then again, they're going to be that waterproof to help prevent that your inner materials from getting soaked out, and then also helping protect you from the wind. You're also going to do that with your bottom. So I use a base layer. You can get some puffy pants if you're really out there. A lot of times when I'm moving, I just do the base layer, and then I just do either a rain pant. I like soft shell pants, which that's another option that isn't going to be fully waterproof. That's more if you're doing some active movement. It's a little bit more breathable, but it's going to give you a lot more water repellency than a standard nylon pant. For example, it's going to give you a little bit more of that protection against the elements there. And then I'm thinking about that with my feet as well. So I have my socks, and then I'll do 2 layers of socks in the winter. A big common mistake that a lot of people make in the winter is that they like to stuff their feet, so you get these big, huge, thick socks. And what actually happens is that takes up all the space in your boot. You actually want to have some space, because your body is radiating this heat, and your waterproof boot on the outside wants to trap in some of that body heat that you're generating. So that's a pretty common mistake. A lot of people are like, I have really thick socks, why are my feet still wet? And I tell people just to use thinner socks, or use a thin sock liner and then an additional maybe mid-weight sock, and then they see really big differences. Again, that idea of pulling the moisture away from our foot, especially if we're moving, our feet are going to get pretty sweaty, and we don't just want a big thick sock that's sucking everything in. So lots of things to think about. The best thing to do is just play with different systems. Everybody's body's different. So you just got to get that out there and experiment a little bit. But as long as you remember that rule of 3 and kind of what we're thinking about, you're going to stay warm, you're going to stay comfortable, so you can have fun all year round, anywhere across the globe. All right. If you have any questions, definitely reach out to me, because I love chatting about this.